You are lying to the mirror. A seasoned clinical psychologist does not listen to the words a patient says. They observe the architecture of the excuses. You look at your own life, your careful decisions, your quiet obedience, and you call it prudence. You call it playing the long game. You tell yourself that you are managing risk. You convince yourself that by keeping your head down, by not offending the grid, by protecting your digital footprint and your corporate rank, you are executing a brilliant strategy for longevity. This is a clinical delusion. You are projecting your absolute terror of ruin onto the external world. You are not managing risk. You are hiding. You are confusing a suspended, agonizing state of chronic anxiety with actual living. The civilian mind builds a heavy, invisible fortress around its comforts, absolutely terrified that one wrong move will invite consequence. You walk on eggshells in your own life. You edit your words. You swallow your anger. You negotiate with people you despise, entirely convinced that avoiding friction will grant you a permanent extension on your timeline. This is the geometry of a hostage. You must recognize the exact defense mechanism you are currently running. You use rationality as a shield to mask your biological panic. You think you are protecting your future, but you are merely feeding your fear.
We must surgically dissect the biological machine to understand why you are so easily controlled. The modern civilian is paralyzed by the hyperactivation of the self-preservation instinct. Your nervous system is an ancient, primitive architecture. It was engineered to prioritize survival above sovereignty. The system knows this. The algorithmic architects, the corporate managers, the social manipulators, they do not need to apply physical force to break your will. They simply apply pressure to your timeline. When your timeline is perceived as fragile, you become instantly leverageable. When an adversary threatens your reputational status, your income stream, or your social standing, your amygdala does not differentiate between a digital threat and a physical predator. It floods your prefrontal cortex with cortisol. It paralyzes your executive function. The fear of systemic collapse forces the civilian to trade their internal sovereignty for the mere illusion of safety. They expect you to negotiate. They expect you to beg for your position. They know that a human who fears the loss of their comfort can be steered with absolute mathematical precision. Your desperate desire to simply survive the cycle is the exact iron chain they use to drag you across the dirt. Do not look away. The architecture of your hesitation is about to be completely shattered. Endure this forge until the final frame, and you will leave with the iron required to conquer. Secure your position in the arsenal by subscribing now. Those who break early remain prey.
To defeat the grid, you must understand how a rational enemy calculates your behavior. Every system of control operates on a singular, rigid, predictive model. They assume you want to survive. They operate their OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act, under the strict mathematical assumption that you will prioritize your own safety above all else. When a manipulator corners you, they rely on your biological desire to preserve what you have. If they threaten your job, they expect you to apologize. If they threaten your reputation, they expect you to conform. Their entire structural power over you exists entirely because you are terrified of the final exile. What happens to a rational system when the target no longer fears the end? The system breaks. It violently and immediately collapses. The Raider archetype operates on a completely alien cognitive framework. They understand the dark psychology of fatalism. When you fully integrate the realization that absolute erasure is the only destination, the fear of it loses all leverage. It becomes a pathetic waste of kinetic energy. The Viking does not fight to preserve his timeline. He fights to execute a flawless, uncompromising conclusion. There is nothing more terrifying to a rational, calculating enemy than an opponent who has already accepted the final exile.
Abstract theory is useless without the physical proof of the battlefield. We extract the truth from the blistering heat and the rusted iron of the river Danube. The year is 971 AD, the siege of Dorostalon. We observe a masterclass in asymmetric psychological warfare. The Rus warlord Sviatoslav, commanding a hardened force of Norse-descended Varangian warriors, is trapped in the fortress of Dorostalon. He is surrounded by the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine army is the most advanced, rational, and mathematically precise military machine on the planet. They possess heavy cavalry, advanced siege engines, and a massive numerical advantage. They outnumber the Norsemen 5-1. The Byzantine Emperor, John I Tzimiskes, calculates the board. The math dictates absolute, unmitigated ruin for Sviatoslav. Tzimiskes executes a rational strategy. He offers the starving Vikings a treaty. He offers them safe passage and gold if they surrender their position. The Emperor's predictive model assumes that starving, surrounded men will choose survival. Sviatoslav refuses. He gathers his warriors in the dirt. He does not offer them false hope. He does not promise them a miraculous rescue. He looks at his men and weaponizes the absolute end. He states the cold, physical reality. We have nowhere to retreat. We cannot flee. Let us lay down our bones right here, for the dead have no shame. He orders the gates locked from the inside. He burns the ships on the riverbank. The Byzantine predictive model instantly shatters. Tzimiskes expects an enemy fighting to survive. He is suddenly faced with an enemy fighting exclusively to inflict damage before the void takes them. The starving Norsemen charge out of the gates, abandoning all defensive formations. They do not fight with the objective of surviving the hour. They have already accepted their departure from the living. They enter a state of hyperkinetic, calculated dominance. The rational Byzantine phalanx undergoes total psychological paralysis. They are not fighting men, they are fighting an atmospheric pressure. The heavy Byzantine cavalry, trained to exploit retreating enemies, cannot comprehend a force that steps forward into the spears. The sheer, terrifying violence, Sviatoslav's fatalism, forces the Byzantine emperor to halt the slaughter and grant the Rus a highly favourable peace treaty. Sviatoslav was heavily outnumbered, starving, and cut off from the world. But he dictated the terms of the engagement. He proved that a warrior who draws his sword with the absolute, final commitment of the end creates a spatial perimeter that the rational mind cannot breach. You cannot leverage a warrior who has already mentally resigned from the timeline.
This is not ancient mythology. This is biological reality. When you constantly worry about what might happen, your brain remains in a perpetual state of low-grade panic. The amygdala fires continuously. You are exhausted because your mind is constantly calculating 1,000 different scenarios to avoid pain. But a profound psychological shift occurs the exact moment you look at the absolute worst-case scenario and accept it. When you say, I accept the ruin, I accept the loss of the job, I accept the social exile, the amygdala stops firing. The brain registers the threat not as a pending variable, but as a resolved fact. The panic alarm shuts off. The prefrontal cortex, the center of logic, cold execution, and spatial control, comes back online. You stop bleeding kinetic energy. You become cold. You become dangerous. The enemy attempts to corner you. They expect you to haggle for terms. They expect you to mitigate the risk. Instead, you lock the heavy timber doors from the inside and draw the iron. You introduce a variable, their rational mind, cannot compute. If you are willing to burn your own platform to the ground just to ensure your enemy does not win, their entire structural power over you evaporates in an instant. The man who cannot be controlled is the man who has already counted his losses and found them completely irrelevant.
Therapy without physical application is a waste of breath. You must physically test this architecture. We will bring this weapon into your modern arena. Within the next 24 hours, you will mentally execute the burning of your own ships. Take a blank sheet of paper. Write down the absolute worst-case scenario regarding your current source of anxiety. If it is a corporate negotiation, write down the exact details of your termination. If it is a social conflict, write down the exact reality of total social exile. Do not soften it. Do not look for a silver lining. Write down the brutal, unvarnished ruin. Then, accept it. Mentally process the fact that this ruin has already happened. The timeline is closed. The ships are burning on the shore behind you. Tomorrow morning, you will walk into your environment, and you will execute your next strategic move under the strict assumption that you have absolutely nothing left to lose. Operate entirely in the dark. Break the dependency on their approval. Watch the physical discomfort in your opponent's eyes when they realize their threats no longer register on your face. Watch how quickly the anxiety of failure evaporates when you accept the void as your baseline.
There is a profound, explosive liberation in the realization that the worst-case scenario has already been factored into your calculus. When you stop fearing your own absolute erasure, the suffocating weight of modern anxiety is instantly annihilated. The chronic exhaustion lifts. You ascend to an untouchable state of sovereign power. You no longer move through the world playing defense. You look at the towering architecture of the system, the panicked adversaries attempting to leverage your civility, and you feel nothing but a cold, quiet amusement. This is the roar of the forge. You realize that your willingness to embrace the end was not a surrender. It was the exact mechanism of your ultimate liberation. You have reclaimed your kinetic potential from the masters who sought to keep you docile through fear. You have stopped negotiating with your own weakness. You are the sovereign anomaly. You stand in the center of the grid, entirely whole, commanding the chaos, answering to no one but the iron code you forged in the dark. The siege is over. If the mirror exposed the cowardice in your strategy, carve your oath of correction in the comments. Strike the like button to reinforce the shield wall, and subscribe to the Daily Motivation Library to draw the next blade. The timeline is closing. Execute the strike. Stand ready.